Yeah, I actually would be very excited to accept the offer. I'm very excited for the opportunity.
Awesome. That's fantastic news. Is going to be over the moon. So as far as next steps, just to recap.
Hello everyone, so today that I have special news to share, and it really is, and that is that I left Accenture. And I wanted to use this video to explain why I left Accenture, where I'm heading next. Definitely stick along to the end on where exactly I'm heading. So I've been thinking about this for a while. Like, it definitely was something that wasn't overnight, and because I really enjoyed my time at Accenture. So it wasn't something that I necessarily just like said, okay, I'm leaving. Like, I hate Accenture. No, that was not the case. I really enjoyed my time at Accenture, and it really was something that I thought long and hard. So in this video, I'm gonna be talking about my journey as to why I left, like what I ended up doing during the time that I decided, and even like how I even came to decide it, as well as like looking for the next steps. So from here, if you guys haven't watched my video over here, I did talk about that I did want to go into product management, and that is still true today. So when I looked into that, I had two options. One was transferring within Accenture, and that would be pretty difficult to transfer in my opinion when it comes to Accenture. And I did a video here on pigeonholing yourself in technology consulting. My idea of pigeonholing is that a lot of times, depending on how far or how deep you go, you are pigeonholing yourself. But for me, because of the fact that the Workday ecosystem is pretty locked down, that like if you're certified, this is what you're going to be doing is Workday. And if you're not certified, it's hard to get into Workday. It's like it goes both ways. But because I got so many certifications, like at this point over 13 Workday certifications, and the typical is probably like 5 per person, maybe not even that many. So for me, like I really pigeonhole myself in Workday, because whenever I was bored or whenever I wanted to do something different, I just learned a new certification. I didn't think twice about doing a non-Workday certification or training. So when I came to the day where I was like, okay, maybe it's time for me to look into product management, which was something that I wanted to do back in college. Like I did a e-commerce product management internship at her campus media. And at that time I really enjoyed it, but I wanted to do consulting first because then I get exposure to all these industries and all these technologies. One downside is that when I came in for the technology development program, they put me right into the Workday practice, which I had no say whatsoever. So that's actually one downside, is that if I had the choice, if I wanted to do Workday, I probably would still be at Accenture doing Workday. But because of the fact that I did not have the choice, I didn't have that say. So for that reason, it made it very hard for me to decide like, okay, do I want to move to product management within Accenture? Do I want to do it outside? And I really actually did reach out to everyone and like build experience in Accenture Interactive for product management, learn about the practice. I really enjoyed it and I wanted to do it. I even tried to go for 2 projects and I unfortunately could not get it because my experience in Workday Financials could not cover the skill set, or that there were issues with going into like an Accenture Federal Service project. All these opportunities made it very hard for me to see, can I do product management at Accenture? And though I did have opportunities to say yes to, sometimes it's just like some legal ramifications, but at this point it really was timing on like, okay, what were the opportunities outside of Accenture compared to the ones internally at Accenture? So one of the other reasons was that I'm in my 20s, like I'm right now at the point of this recording, I'm 26, and I really thought long and hard about this too. Do I see myself at Accenture for many, many years to come? And I like the experience that I'm having right now, but do I see myself doing sales? Do I see myself being managing director? No, I really like being hands-on with a product, with the client, with the technology. But as higher you go, the more administrative, the more managerial you get. And to a certain extent, I like that, but I don't want that to be my main job. And as you go higher, that's what you're gonna have to expect. And for me, like when I thought about that, I was like, okay, do I want to do that? And for me, I didn't want to. I wanted to be more hands-on with the product, see it to the end. I don't care if I don't get like chief product officer. I would prefer to just have more self-fulfillment work with the product itself or with technology. And then the other one was financial worth. And I know like everyone talks about this, is that like to get that leap, to get that financial gain, you need to jump other companies. And for me, that was like the lowest one I had on my radar. Like I just like was even okay with doing the same pay as what I'm getting at Accenture. But I also saw like, okay, if I wanted to get financial gains and get closer to my end goal, because my end goal still wasn't product management, it still wasn't consulting. My end goal was to be able to do something of my own, like an entrepreneurial effort. So if that's the case, like jumping to different companies is still going to be more fulfilling than if I stayed in the same company to get that experience of like, oh, with different types of business models, different types of people, areas within a company, or even just different companies in general altogether. So that was something that really drove it. The financial gain from jumping from company to company is also something. And I even did a poll right over here on my Instagram of like, are you the type of person to stay at a company for a long period of time out of loyalty? Or are you a person to jump from company to company for like other different reasons, like financial gain or maybe like different experiences? And a lot of people ended up choosing the latter. And for me, like I honestly was really about loyalty at the first point. But then I'm like, I'm in my 20s. Like I can always come back to Accenture if I wanted to. It's not like I hated my time at Accenture. It's not like I didn't like it either, that I would be down to come back if all the cards aligned. So really that was like what really drove it. And also like in general, when it came to technology consulting, like I'm generally on a project where I'm working with a client like from very beginning, like they've never seen Workday before to the point that they're going live, and a little bit few after months for that. And then other ones like would be after they've been live for a few months or even years, then I'll come in for like post-production support, in some cases like enhancements or incidences. And that's also pretty cool too, because then you get to see a product to fruition and you help them out. But to me, like I think that's just helping. I'm not really doing anything, you know? So I wanted to be part of the product itself. Like let's say for example, Workday. One of the things that I hated the most about doing that like post-production support thing that I wanted to do is that at least in the implementation, we do the like, you know, the minimum viable product, the one that you need to be able to go live. But then you have all these other edge cases or use cases that are not typically considered, but they're just as important. They're just not prioritized. And those are the ones that typically Workday has some kind of limitation on. And I have no say whatsoever. All I tell the client is like, hey, let's create a brainstorm. And that's what the client does. And even so, the client is not the one that actually says like, okay, if there's a brainstorm, that's what happens. So that's one of the big things, is that I wanted to have like a tangible, like a actual result out of a product, not just from like this one client, but from everyone. So if like Workday has a limitation, I want to be the one to also be able to push that through or see to the end. And that was also something that I really enjoyed about my Her Campus Media internship with e-commerce, was that I pushed like an entire shop online, and it was so fulfilling to see that, to see like all the work that I've done, all the research like is all coming in today and still out there as well. So that's like one of the main reasons. And so now I'm gonna go into the steps as to how I did it, as to like how I figured it out on like, is it time for me to leave, or is it even time for me to like go for interviews and whatnot. So the first one is that I spoke to a lot of people who left at Accenture, and specifically the Workday practice, so HCM or financials. I spoke to everyone, even some people I knew that like left that were not even in the Workday practice, some people like that. And I asked like, why did they leave? How did they leave? Like what kind of projects or what kind of activities that they ended up doing. And it was a whole spectrum of like people who left the Workday ecosystem to do something completely different, or people who stayed in the Workday ecosystem on the client side, or that they were doing it in a different company, or they were doing it in Workday as a whole. And some people even went like independent consulting. So I really explored all my options out there to see like, am I just seeing things like from my one perspective, and what to see like, what did other people think about, why did they leave? But I also, vice versa, spoke to people internally at Accenture with the areas that I was interested in. First of all was like Workday, see like people within the actual practice and see like, is that what I see myself? Maybe like I came with misconceptions about what my career would look like in Workday, like as leadership. And then from there, I also had a decision like, okay, is this what I see myself doing? No. And then for me, I was like, okay, let's think about like leaving Workday now. And then I looked at other people that have gone from the Workday practice to like innovation design, or that they've done, or they're even doing a transfer right now for product management. And I looked into say, how did you do it? Like, why are you leaving? Or what's your experience like? And then I also spoke to a lot of people in the build interactive digital products, product management area as well. See, like introduce myself and vice versa. They introduce themselves to me, and I see like, what are the types of projects out there, activities? Like, is that what I envisioned myself doing? Is it exactly what I thought it would be doing? And in a lot of cases it was, but as I said, it's all about timing, which leads to the next part. So in terms of recruitment, there's like two ways that I did it. One was like actual recruiters reaching out to me on LinkedIn, and the other way was that I was applying for a lot of positions as well. And for me, when I was applying, I only applied for product management. So any other roles that came to me that were non-product management were because recruiters reached out to me. And actually what I ended up doing was like I changed my LinkedIn a little bit. I removed almost everything related to Workday in my description, and I made my entire title on for like Accenture to be Business and Integration Architecture, which is actually my official title within Accenture. But I removed the Workday Financial Consultant because like that would mean that like I'm pigeonholing myself in Workday from search engine optimization alone on LinkedIn. So I removed that, and I also tried to like make it less Workday and more generalized jargon, I guess. Like for example, Workday methodology. I changed that to Agile because Workday methodology is technically a form of Agile. So I changed it to that. And then one would be like tenant builds. I changed tenant builds to iteration. So things like that, like little keywords that people in product management or just in tech in general would be more familiar with, as opposed to like Workday terminology and jargon that Workday is very specific for. I did all that, and from that, like I actually helped myself remove myself from the Workday ecosystem. I still have Workday recruiters reaching out to me, but way less than before, when almost every single person reaching out to me was for Workday. Now it's like probably 10% Workday, and the rest are all non-Workday roles. So each person that came to me, I literally entertained the idea, like whatever role, even some that I was not interested in. But at least I would look into it, maybe do a first round interview, and then I would either say if I'm interested or not. So that's what I did. One of them was actually, the one that I was looking for. It was like back in mid-December when I actually started my entire search. And mid-December was around the time that I finished all my contacting people within Accenture or outside of Accenture. And when I made a decision like, okay, I'll do both at the same time. I'll like process the internal transfer as well as look externally. So that's what I did, is that I started to open myself for work on LinkedIn, actively, not the flexible one. And then I chose like the roles that I was interested in, which was product manager, program manager, associate product manager, junior product manager, basically opening myself up for everything. I realized that later on that I was like technically I qualified for a lot of the associate or junior product manager roles, but the compensation was nowhere close because my compensation at Accenture would not match up to those roles. So instead I had to do product manager. And in January, like I actually did receive an offer for a product manager role at one of the companies that I applied for. And unfortunately, the compensation wasn't necessarily there, so I had to say no. But it wasn't just for that reason. It was also for many other reasons. Like I would technically be the second product manager in that entire team. So the structure I wanted, the training that I wanted to see like how a product manager would be like, would be non-existent. It would be basically me like doing my Her Campus Media internship all over again, which wasn't even traditional product management. It was just, if you're the only one doing it, you're gonna be the one who's running the show. It doesn't mean like you have any meetings or anything like that you typically have in the like agile methodology. So that was one reason I declined it after negotiating like 10K more, but it still wasn't what I was looking for because it would have been a pay cut from what I was doing at Accenture. And for me, I want to do like the same pay or more. So I wasn't even looking for a pay cut. And that's actually when I start to realize like how much was I actually looking for, because I was okay to take like a tiny pay cut. And for that particular role, I was taking a tiny pay cut, not that much even. But like all the other factors with like the type of environment, the learning opportunities, like still wasn't something that I was looking for. So now I started actually like interviewing for roles that recruiters have reached out to me or vice versa that I apply. I only applied for like mid-December to end of December and then like maybe the first 2 weeks of January, and then I stopped applying because at that point I had a lot of people reaching out to me for interviews. I could not keep up with it. I almost had like 3 to 5 interviews a week. It was a lot. So a lot of them was like really what helped me see that I was lacking in a few areas to be product manager. I did not lack an associate product manager in a lot of ways, but I still didn't have the compensation didn't match up. So I knew that to be able to be a product manager where it would match up to the compensation that I was looking for in New York City at least, that's where I saw like, okay, what are the areas that I'm lacking in? And that's working with engineers, working in an environment where you're working in a tech company or in anything like that, or in general, like working with a product team. Doesn't mean that you're working in a product team, but working with a product team. So a lot of that, like I lacked from my Workday projects. And I thought about like, what if I did a product management project within Accenture and then use that for leverage? And that's what I could have done. But honestly, like beginning February, I had 3 offers, and that's where I was like, okay, which one do I want to decide now? Do I want to say no to all of them or move forward and keep on going for the project and for the internal transfer? And so when I was looking into that, I was like, okay, I have all these options, and I can either do solutions architect, which is actually what a lot of the roles ended up reaching out to me for. So I had 2 solutions architect / solution consultant roles that reached out to me for, and this was like through a recruiter. I didn't even apply for these. As I mentioned before, I only looked for product management roles personally, but when they reached out to me, it was very compelling because it seemed like very similar to what I was looking for, but just not exactly product management. And I know like product management was not the end goal. For me, the end goal was to seeing a product to the end and really being involved with the product. And solutions architects or solutions consultants do that technically. And it would be very easy for me to transfer my skills from Accenture into this role. So when I looked into that, I actually saw like, okay, this would be a pretty nice role to add. So in my little like open to work search, I put in solutions architect as well. I wasn't actively looking for it, but because of that, more recruiters reached out to me for this role that I did not previously know existed. I did know about it, but it wasn't something like I was like, yo, I'm gonna be going for that. So after that, I went for the interviews and I realized that like I actually really liked one of the companies. So, and this was like one of the ones that the one I ended up taking, actually the interview process started in mid-December, before I was even actively looking, ironically. But I did it because of the company and it was something that I always wanted to work at. So the other roles that I had out there were kind of pretty much open to everything. If I got an offer, then I would really make a decision, do I move forward or do I leave? But for me, like if I were to leave Accenture, it would have to be a product management role, or it would be a role that's very closely related to the product team that like has some kind of way that the company itself either would give me leverage to be able to go into product management, or just in general, like whatever I wanted to do. Because maybe I don't want to do product management. Maybe I want to do UX engineering or UX designer, anything like that. So now that like I got to this point, so now comes beginning of February and I had 3 offers, and I did reject one in January, and that one was a product manager role, but I rejected for the reasons I mentioned before. But beginning of February, I had 3 offers, and that's where I really decided like, okay, none of them were product management roles, but one of them promised me that I could go into product management, and I did research, and it was obvious that like the interactions would make it very easy to fill that gap I had from my experience in Workday. And then the other one would be something I really liked about the product itself, because like, as I mentioned before, these are recruiters reaching out to me. So it's like based off of what they thought was a good fit for me. Both were actually related to e-commerce, but one of them I liked more because of the fact that like there's more customization. The other one was something that's already established and it would be more of like a consultant role than an implementation. But both of them do work very well with the product team. And both of them have also mentioned that I could move into the product team from that, or work with the product team from that. But one particular one, the one I ended up accepting, said, okay, I'll work with you to move you into that area. And I knew that company was well known for it. So I did a lot of research. I reached out on Blind, on Fishbowl, and Quora, like literally everything possible to see what are the roles out there that I was applying for, like what is their capability moving to product management, like how about like the experience at these particular companies, how is it like? Also even the compensation to see like if they match up to what I was looking for. Both of them matched up to the compensation I was looking for. And so finally I got the offer. I signed the offer. The reveal is that I am going to be starting on March 14th an advertising solutions architect at Google. So I'll still be based in New York. I'll still be doing very similar actually to what I'm doing right now at Accenture, but instead of Workday, it would be Google Shopping. And from this role, like I would work with the sales team, the product team, engineering team, and even like internally as well. This is under the G-Tech Professional Services. So it's very similar to consulting. And from that, it was like Google was my #1 company before Accenture. Like Google was like the company I wanted from as a child. So when I realized that a Google recruiter reached out to me, it was like I had to do it. Like why wouldn't I do it? And this is why I was like from very beginning, before I was even actively looking, I interviewed. But the interview process took a long time. So that video will be coming up soon as to like what the actual interview process was like for me. But I'm so happy to say that I'll be leaving Accenture on March 2nd. That's my last day. And then I'll be doing my little Nashville Chattanooga trip. And then I start at Google on March 14th. And it's gonna be the advertising solutions architect, Google Shopping ads team based in New York out of their G-Tech Professional Services. So I'm very excited. I've always been wanting Google, and I can't believe that it finally happened. And to me, like when I said okay, technically I had like these 3 offers, but if I had Google, I'm taking it. I don't care. If the compensation's a little bit pay cut, I don't care. I'm still gonna take it. But I really liked it, and that's the story. So thank you guys, everyone, and see you guys next time. Bye!